Hi, I'm George Maestri, and today we're going to take a look at how to rig cartoon eyes. So I have a sample of the eyes that we're going to rig, and as you can see, they're very squashy and stretchy. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start off with a file called cartooneyes.ma, and these are basically simple eyes. They have a sphere for the eyeball, and then a hemisphere for the lid. So you can basically blink the eyes by just rotating that lid around the x-axis. So we're going to go ahead and rig these using lattices so that way we can squash and stretch them. So I'm going to go ahead and take this second set of eyes, the left eyes, and I'm going to hide them by hitting Control H. And let's go ahead and just work with the right eye, and we'll go ahead and get that rigged, and then we can just duplicate that work on the other eye. So all I need to do is basically add a lattice to this, and we can deform it. So it's really a very straightforward task. All I have to do is select both of these, and then we can go into our rigging tab here, and under Deform, we should have lattice. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring that up. And what we want to do is just do a 2 by 2 by 2 lattice. And then if something goes outside of it, we want to make sure that it transforms all points. So that way, if an object accidentally moves outside the lattice, we want to make sure it's still transformed. So 2 by 2 by 2 and transform all points. And let's go ahead and hit Create. And when I do that, basically it creates this simple structure. And I can take this lattice now and just select one of the lattice points or multiple lattice points and move them around. And we can stretch this or we can squash it if we want. Now the nice thing about this is that you can still blink the eye and it will stick to the eyelid even though it's deformed. And that's because the lattice is deforming everything after that rotation. So I'm going to go ahead and undo my way out of this. So if this is all you wanted to do, you could actually use this as a rig. But we want to rig this a little bit better so that way we have a little bit more control, make it easier for the animator. So I'm going to go back to object mode on the lattice. And let's go ahead and create some control points to control this action. So the easiest thing to do is to use NURBS curves. So I'm going to do create NURBS primitives circle. And then I'm going to scale that circle up and move it into place. So I'm just going to move it towards the bottom of this lattice. So this will be the base of my eye. And we can call this right eye base. And then I'm going to duplicate it by hitting Control D and move it up. And this will be right eye, let's just call this upper. So now I have these two controls here, and I want to make sure that when I create these that I also do a modify freeze transformations, and that sets all the translates to 0. So now that I have this, I still need to be able to deform this lattice. Now I could do this in a number of ways. I might be able to use clusters, but probably the easiest way to do it is just to add some joints and to skin the lattice to the joints. So I'm going to go into rigging, and under skeleton we're just going to create joints. And I'm going to create a joint that is at the base, right about here. And then I'm going to duplicate that again, and remember, duplicate is Control D, and move that up here. So I have two joints here, and if I look at that in the outliner, you'll see that I've got this set of joints here, joint 1 and joint 3. So let's go ahead and select both of these joints and then select the lattice last, and then just do skin, bind skin. And when I do that, this joint now controls the upper part of the lattice, and this joint down here controls the lower part. So basically what I've done is I've skinned that lattice to the joints. So now all we have to do is take these joints and make them the children of the controllers. So I've got my eye base and my eye upper. So joint 1 is the base, so I'm going to middle click and drag in the outliner over eye base. Joint 3 is the one at the top. we can go into eye upper. Now, if we want to, we could rename these joints to be totally cool, but this should work. And now I select my curve and I can do that. And then I can scale and it will scale. Now, the one thing about this is it won't scale in some directions, so I can not scale vertically too much, but I can scale along X and Z. So now that I have all of this, all I have to do now is select my lattice and my two joints. I'm shift selecting these, and let's just do a display hide selection, or we could hit Control H. So there we go. So now I've got this set up. Now, once we have this, we can basically just blink the eye by rotating the lid. But one of the things you'll notice is that when I move the eye over, the blink control is actually way over here. And that's because we're actually moving that away from its pivot. Now, this will still work, but it's kind of not a great interface. People will not be able to find that rigging control if the character is moving all over the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and undo this, put this back to 0, and let's go ahead and create our own eye control for this. So I'm going to create this on this top one here, and we're just going to add a couple of attributes. So I'm going to go into Edit, Add Attribute. So I'm going to make one attribute to blink, so we're going to call this Blinker, and we're going to make the minimum 0 and the maximum 100, and just make sure that that's a float. Hit OK, and notice how this comes up here. And let's do one more. I'm going to go Edit, Add Attribute, and let's make this one to tilt the eyelid. So I'll call this Tilter. And we're going to go maximum of, say, negative 100 to positive 100. So 0 will be the center. Let's go ahead and add that. So now we have these two extra attributes that we can use to blink and tilt that eyelid. So just to refresh, blinking is rotation along X, and tilting is rotation along Z. So X and Z. So I'm going to go ahead and put that back to 0, and let's go ahead and set up a set-driven key. So I'm going to select this eyelid, go into Animation, Key, Set-driven key, Set. So this brings up the lid as the driven, and the driver is going to be this right eye upper. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Load Driver. So the blinker is going to control rotate X. So I'm going to go ahead and set a key for that. Select my blinker, go to 100, select my eyelid, and rotate that to 180, which will completely close it, and key that. So now when this blinker goes from 0 to 100, we can blink it. I'm going to set that at 0. And so now we want to do the tilt along Z. So again, my tilter is at 0, so I'm going to go ahead and key that. And now I'm going to put my tilter at 100. Put the blink at about 50 here. And then I'm going to select this eyelid, and we're going to tilt it. So this is 100, so let's go ahead and make that negative 45. Key that. Go back to this. Put the tilter at negative 100. Select the lid. Put that at 45, which is the opposite direction. Hit key. And now I'm going to put my tilter at 0. So now I can blink and tilt my eyelid, as well as move and scale any one of these. And now, if I want to, I can still continue to blink while that's active. So there you go. So those are the basics of how to rig one of the eyeballs. And obviously, the second eyeball is exactly the same, except you're doing it on the other eye. So again, let's take a look at how this animates. And as you can see, you get a lot of flexibility with this rig. So go ahead and use this in your characters and have fun with it.